Hello and welcome to the debate. I'm your host Sana Maqbool with you at PTV World. In today's special session, of course, we're going to be talking about the Prime Minister's address to the nation that he earlier gave today. Of course, he talked about the various important aspects with regards to what has developed in Pakistan and the political situation in the country since early March. He also spoke about the no confidence motion, and he also talked about the foreign conspiracy that he highlighted earlier on the 27th of March in his own rally. Initially, he also talked about his political career. He talked about his motivations for joining politics, why he intended to revive and prosper Pakistan with regards to his efforts and his government and his party. He spoke about all the different challenges that Pakistan has continued to face throughout its years, and he also spoke about the will of the government to making sure that Pakistan is an independent, sovereign state. He highlighted all of these issues and spoke about why, because of this, it is not sitting well with some of the countries in the country, the way the foreign policy has been independent since the Prime Minister came into power, and that is the source of the problem and of the foreign conspiracy as well. He spoke about how, if the no confidence motion actually succeeds, that is going to go against the country, because this is going to be in favor of what the foreign elements actually desire. He highlighted various stances and aspects of the letter as well. He spoke about how exactly what has been demanded, what has been said, the kind of language that has been used earlier. This was also shared with the National Security Committee meeting, who also expressed grave concern over the kind of language that has been used in that letter, and how it clearly meddled in with the internal matters of Pakistan, which of course is a serious matter. We're going to be talking more about what the Prime Minister spoke about earlier in his speech today, and then of course the political situation of the country. He also ended his speech with regards to the vote, which he said is going to be held on Sunday, and he appealed to the nation and talked to them with regards to how we need to make sure that Pakistan actually succeeds and Pakistan actually moves towards a path of progress and independence, which he has aspired to, which Qaid Azam also aspired to. He talked about the disgruntled elements of PTI as well, and spoke to them directly as well, saying that they still need to rethink and readdress their issues and their concerns, and talk about and think about the future and progress of Pakistan, and how, if they don't do that, they are not going to be faithful or loyal to their country. This has been the crux of Prime Minister Imran Khan's speech, which we're going to explore in our session today. With me in the studios, of course, is Farrukh Pitafi and Raja Faisal, and we'll be joined online by a number of guests as well who are going to be speaking about this issue as well. Faisal, when we talk about, of course, what has gone in the country in the past couple of days, there has been a lot of speculation, a lot of concerns, a lot of question marks with regards to what is going to happen, many of which the Prime Minister actually highlighted in his address today as well. Specifically with regards to the foreign conspiracy, of course, this was an important address for the nation. Do you think this is going to have any impact on the numbers game in the Parliament on Sunday?
It certainly will, Sana. I believe that this is going to be the turning point for the government, because I mean, looking at it from a different prism, of course, it's a conspiracy, and it is being highlighted by China as well, by Russia as well. So, in this context, of course, things will be getting changed in coming days. What I'm believing is that obviously the parties that has gone out of the government and joined the opposition ranks, they might reconsider, rethink about their position there, and after knowing certain facts about how things are moving, especially related to this conspiracy, and how another country or international establishment that was involved in it, there will be certain changes in the opposition ranks. Okay. So to me, I think 172, number of 172 is sort of not going to be achieved by the opposition.
All right. Of course, the opposition is also quoting higher numbers with regards to dissidents within PTI as well. Farrukh, when we look at the situation after this address, of course, it's going to have an impact on the way things go. But when we talk about the vote, earlier we were discussing whether or not there's a possibility of a resignation, whether or not there's a possibility of early elections. Those options seem to be off the table. So we are going ahead with the vote now for sure.
Right. If you look at the Prime Minister's speech today, he was clearly positioning himself somewhere, and that was quite interesting. One, it was of course a comment on the coming vote of no confidence. Whether that is going to succeed or not, he also actually commented on that. But after that, the positioning was such that whenever the next elections are going to take place, people who will be responsible to remove him, they will be considered, seen in negative light, and he will be the deliverer for the people. So that was how the entire speech positioned him, and that we saw as well. Regarding what Raja Faisal was earlier saying, there is some problem with the issue of defining things, right? One, Raja Sahab was saying conspiracy. Of course, what came out of the National Security Committee was clear that it was undiplomatic. It was an intrusion in Pakistan's internal matters, especially because it came from a diplomatic source. But whether there was a conspiracy, you have to actually connect the dots.
Right.
First dot is, of course, the statement that was given. The second would be if there was any kind of influx of money in the country and use of that money, that will also will have to be revealed. Until that time, I will go with the public statement of National Security Committee, which called it undiplomatic and an intrusion into Pakistan's internal matters.
But it is a matter of security concern.
I think that when the matter has ended up with National Security Committee, it is a concern there. But of course, what path to take? Actually, to think that all Pakistanis or some Pakistanis might be working in cohorts with foreigners, or whether a diplomat somewhere said something which was inappropriate. These are two very different things, right?
All right.
And I think that our nation is mature enough that it can actually work with both the ideas.
All right, Faisal, what exactly is the path that a nation should be following or does follow in such a situation when we have such sort of undiplomatic letter from foreign elements and we've had a sitting of the National Security Committee? What's the next step forward? I understand there has been a step highlighted by the NSC as well, but with regards to our relations with any particular countries, how are we going to proceed?
First of all, talking about the cable itself, normally all of these diplomatic cables, they always remain classified unless there is something related to a sort of dire situation, which is right now. And of course, that is why Prime Minister Imran Khan was referring to that cable, and he has highlighted few of the points and few of the content of that diplomatic cable, and that of course is sort of directly affecting Pakistan, and that is why we saw today that there is a statement came out of national security, and I think this is how it should have been. But looking at how diplomacy would shape up, of course, all of these matters, they are considered as of huge confidence on each other. They will be a sort of cold phase between both of the states, and whatever the states are involved in it, there will be a cold phase when it comes to diplomacy, and which is not good for both of the countries. And we already know that the things were not moving good when it comes to the bilateral things.
All right, but when you say cold phase, that implies that perhaps it's not as grave as the situation is being portrayed by the Prime Minister or the government, for example. Is it just going to be a cold phase? Perhaps that's a risk that a country can take if it's such a big matter to its national security concern. If that's the only consequence we're going to face, is it?
I think, let me tell you that, of course, now two major countries of the region, plus they have a huge impact or influence throughout the world. I'm talking about China and Russia. To me, things are, coming to me the way Russians are thinking about it and the way China is thinking about it. They will be highlighting this aspect on a larger arena, and this, of course, would mean a lot. And of course, there would be an impact of it. But looking at the concerned countries' relations with our country, that we already having a strained kind of relation, that would, I think, deepen up.
All right. Yes, Farrukh, you wanted to add
Right.
something?
I simply wanted to actually address a couple of things. Right. First, the starting point is a demarche, which will be given. Usually, the concerned country's ambassador, ranking official, is summoned to the Foreign Office, and the demarche is given. That means we protest in the strongest possible language. Right. That is the first thing. Secondly, just because at this moment it hasn't been stated or actually spelled out, doesn't mean there isn't a conspiracy, right? So what do? You actually investigate. So Pakistan has very powerful, very competent foreign, our intelligence agencies. This matter can be referred to them. They can investigate whether there was any kind of money influx also, and especially with all these elements which are in the parliament, if there was at all a bribe, and if it was, where did it come from, and whether it came from abroad. Then you can take this matter and escalate it further if you want to, right? Now the third thing regarding the domestic impact, remember, it takes me back to 2013 when, if you remember, Tarul Qadri actually came to Islamabad and he protested here for many days. His speech at that time, most of us, because we were covering it, we were concerned that it may not explode and there might not be any kind of kinetic outcome, right? But actually what he was doing was he was delivering speeches and they were being seen by the common man, right? Yeah. Later his narrative was adopted even by the PTI in the elections, right? Because they saw that there was something fishy. So whatever you say on air has a resonance, it has an impact. So the Prime Minister is directly talking, he spoke to the people of Pakistan in Jalsa as well and now as well. So whatever he is saying will be actually communicated to the common man. So they are going to actually have their own opinion on it, and in coming elections, you will see what happens.
All right, let me just welcome in the debate Mr. Mubashir Zaidi, who's a senior journalist as well. Let me welcome him in the debate. Thank you very much for joining us. When we look at, of course, the Prime Minister's address, this has been, of course, the major development of today. Let me also welcome Masood Khalid, the former ambassador, to the debate as well. I'll start with you, Mr. Mubashir. When we speak about the speech, what do you make of it, and who was it for?
Well, I think two things that have come. One is the National Security Committee announcement, which is a more diplomatic way of how Pakistan intends to take this thing forward, which is that we're going to parent express our concerns to the country which has from where this diplomatic cable came from by ambassador. So this is one way of doing it. What Mr. Khan, as Prime Minister, in his address, has actually tried to convey to his core constituency, which are obviously the PTI workers, that this is a conspiracy to topple his government. We didn't see this in the National Security Council announcement. So there are two different things.
Okay.
So what Prime Minister is doing is trying to convince his own people because that there is a conspiracy to topple his government. He knows that in a couple of days' time, the voting will take place. The opposition has the majority, and he will be toppled or reduced as an opposition leader.
All
He
right.
will be out.
So Zaidi Saab, does this mean that the so-called dissidents or disgruntled members of the BTI will actually reconsider based on this speech?
Well, I think the game is now as such that the opposition has the majority without the dissident members. Now they have the support of the allies that the Prime Minister's party had. So they have enough numbers not to now feed those dissident elements from PTI to vote against Prime Minister. So I think because already Prime Minister as PTI chairman has barred all his members from attending the session that where the count will take place. So all these dissident members will not go to the parliament. So this whole thing about having a de-seating or a disqualification for the dissident members will not arise. So I think that dissident members, yes, it created a sort of pressure on the government and perhaps on more on allies who thought that opposition is really serious in toppling Imran Khan through a no confidence move. So they came to opposition. Uh, what they now this is going to do is that Imran Khan's number has been reduced to 150 or between 150 to 160, which is not enough to prove the majority. So what is going to happen now is this opposition and the new found allies would come and vote out the prime minister.
All right. Ambassador Saab, when we talk about, of course, the foreign conspiracy that has been highlighted by the Prime Minister and again in his speech today as well, this is something, of course, that has been discussed in the National Security Committee as well. And it has been pointed out that the language is undiplomatic and it is a matter of grave concern with regards to the internal matters of the country. How are we going to respond to this with regards to our relationship with other countries around the world, those involved in this, and how is that going to impact our future relationship with those countries?
Well, first of all, diplomatically, what happens is if this kind of serious
All
cable
right,
that
let
would
me
come
go to
to
the
the
ambassador. Mr. Zedi, I'll come back to you. Masood Saab.
Well,
The
thank
question
you
is for
very
you.
much. I think the statement issued by the National Security Council is quite clear and specific, and it has taken into account, the recent, the message which has been conveyed by a foreign country in regard to our internal situation. So it talks about, this being a blatant interference in our internal affairs, and the language which has been used is not diplomatic. And then a decision that the matter will be taken up
Right.
with the concerned country, here as well as in the capital. Now, as far as the future direction is concerned, I think the Prime Minister in his speech made it very clear that Pakistan wants good, friendly relations with all countries, including the country which is being, referred to. So I think that Pakistan's foreign policy is very clear on that count. We do not, you know, take sides in terms of opposing any country. We are primarily doing a foreign policy which protects and safeguards our national interest. So that is
Right.
very important.
Right, Ambassador Saab, there has been, of course, discussion with regards to how perhaps such cables and letters are part of routine matters. In your experience, do you think that so far the information that has been revealed shows this as to be one of many such letters, or is this something which is different and more serious compared to the other ones?
The seriousness of the message is, in the content of the message. And this is not a letter. This was a communication, I believe, by our ambassador in that particular capital to the government, to the Ministry of Foreign Affairs and other quarters concerned. So this is a established practice, nothing unusual about it. And what I gather is that the ambassador met a certain official in that country, who, and the course of discussion, certain points were made. And I'm sure that the ambassador also responded to those points which were raised by his interlocutor. So this is a normal practice, and based on that conversation which they had, the ambassador, of course, was duty bound, and he did that. He reported to the government. Now, content, I have not seen communication, so I can't really comment as to what was contained in that. But what has come out in the media and through other sources, it of course shows that the language was not right. It was undiplomatic, and this is not the way the diplomacy is conducted. But at the same time, such discussions, such conversations do take place, and countries share their concerns, about certain aspects of particular policy. And as the representative of Pakistan, appropriate response is also given. So I think in that we should see this communication in that context.
All right. And Ambassador Saab, in your opinion, what could be the consequences that are being talked about? Of course, there is a pointing towards how serious they are, how horrible they can be, how dangerous they can be for Pakistan. But what really is something that is going to be of concern to the country? Is it going to be economic issues that the country is going to face, or are there more serious matters of national security concerns to the country?
No, I'm not prepared to accept the hype which is, being sort of raised in the sense that, countries do conduct bilateral relations. We conduct bilateral relations which we think are in our national interest, right? Uh, and similarly, our interlocutor would have its concerns. I'm not sure what the content is, but uh, having great consequences in terms of economic assistance, financial squeeze. Uh, well, they are in the realm of possibility, but whether uh, that particular country, when we are not doing anything against their interests per se, will that country go to an extent that it will, sort of penalize Pakistan? I personally think that will not happen. And we are also not interested in precipitating the crisis, in precipitating the matter. We are for, maintaining good relations, cordial relations with all countries, including this particular country. But we pursue our policies which are in conformity with our national interests. Simple as that.
All right.
Yeah, Zadi Saab, I would like to come towards you. Looking at the facts we have on the table, of course, if we talk about the conspiracy theory, of course, they don't have the evidence for yet, but prima facie, looking at it, it seems as if it was all planned. And let's suppose they do find some evidences later on. What kind of moral obligation right now would the former allies of the government would be feeling right now?
Well, I don't think so that it's going to affect on the formal allies of the government. They have made up their mind, and they've made up their mind seeing that the Prime Minister's government is going. So I think it will not affect any of their thoughts or inclination that they might sort of take a comeback and still side with the government. I think a couple of allies have already spoken saying that despite whatever has happened, we have no intention of going back to join the government. So this is it, the kind of, again, getting back to the diplomatic cable. I think diplomatically, the National Security Council has done a very responsible thing by saying that it has been an intrusion into our local affairs, and we take exception to that, and we're going to respond. Now, how do we respond? We obviously summon some official of that country and give him or her a démarche to express our concerns over whatever has been said by our own ambassador in his diplomatic pulpit. So I think the better way was to look at it diplomatically and tackle it diplomatically. What I fear is that Prime Minister is using this thing to kind of create an impression that the country that he's talking about, is actually supporting the opposition parties. For that, you need to give some sort of an evidence to that. By just saying that someone's meeting someone in London, you have to actually come up with the proofs or the evidence that who was that guy who met so and so in London, or where, if at all, there was a conspiracy, where was it passed?
Right, right. With your permission, Sana, let me go back to Ambassador Masood. Ambassador Saab, you have been a career diplomat. You have seen our diplomatic service in action. So let me ask you, just to put the whole thing in proper context. how unusual it is for a country's official to threaten the government, the incumbent government of Pakistan? And do you think that this démarche itself will be the extent of the reaction that Pakistan gives, or it can further escalate as well, sir?
No, this is not unusual. World history is, I mean, driven with stories of interference, and we know countries have been pressurized. We have also been facing pressure, under FATF and other issues. I need not sort of recount all these facts.
Instances.
So this happens in international politics, in global politics, in interstate relations. But I think what is objectionable is the extent to which this the language was employed to sort of intimidate or sort of coerce Pakistan, which is undiplomatic, no doubt, and I think should have been avoided, and the message could have been conveyed more decently and more sort of in a diplomatic manner. But what I gather is that the language is not good. Language was harsh, and the message was also very terse. Anyway, we can contain this. I don't think that there is room for escalation, because I find this national security statement today quite balanced.
Yeah.
And it makes a point. It makes it very clear that Pakistan will take it up, and Pakistan will convey its strong reservations and serious concern over this issue to that particular country.
All right, Ambassador Saab, of course, what... Right,
Yes,
please complete
please.
your thought. Yes.
So I think that should help somewhat contain this matter. This is my opinion.
All right. Ambassador Saab, the Prime Minister also, of course, highlighted the fact that it's important for Pakistan to be pursuing an independent foreign policy. And it is perhaps because of pursuing an independent foreign policy is why we are facing this particular situation at the moment. With regards to whatever happens with regards to the no confidence motion, but post that, when we talk about the government of Pakistan and Pakistan's foreign policy, how are we to proceed with regards to the country in particular and other countries in general as well with regards to our foreign policy being independent or not? Will you be seeing a change, perhaps if there's a change in government, that there's going to be not an independent foreign policy is followed? How essential it is for us to do that, that we actually do follow an independent foreign policy?
You see, independent foreign policy does not mean that if we maintain a relationship with a particular country, it's going to be at the expense of our relations with another state. That doesn't mean that. What independent foreign policy means that if with a particular country we find that there are areas, certain areas where we can collaborate, where it is in mutual interest to collaborate, and we decide to do that. But if it does not, fit in with the strategic objectives of another country, it is due to their own, acrimony or their own conflict in relationship. That should not bother us. We cannot take sides. We should not be taking sides. For example, okay, let me be specific. You have three major countries. You have United States, the sole superpower, then you have China, then you have Russia. These are three main players. And of course, the European Union as a bloc. Now, that does not mean that if we are trying to improve our relations with Russia, we are doing it at the expense of our relations with the United States. No, we want a cordial and friendly relationship with the United States. We are not harming their interests. Similarly, if we are developing our relations with China, which is in our interest, that does not mean that that is against the interests of the United States. That is not. So I think Pakistan's foreign policy has to follow this balanced approach. And I don't think that if we follow this balanced approach, it will be some kind of a threat or a huge challenge for us. I think we have done it before, And even now, I think we are following this particular approach. And I don't think
Absolutely.
that would
Right.
be a
Ambassador Saab, there's, of course, the matter of taking sides. And we have seen Bhutto Saab actually wrote a book called Myth of Independence. I don't know how independent a country like Pakistan can be. I hope we are independent in our foreign policy. But there was a statement that came from China today, and it was about countries becoming collateral damage of a great power game. And China said that countries which are small or medium-sized countries should not become prey to the great game between the great powers. How do you see this statement, sir?
No, I think this statement is quite positive, and this is in conformity to the discussion we are having. That if we have relationship with China, that does not mean that that is going to be at the expense of relationship with the United States. Not at all. But there is a trajectory. There is a different trajectory of relationship with the different states. In the past, we did not have good relations with the former Soviet Union or with Russia. Now we are trying to improve. Now there is a new trajectory. So is Pakistan going to abandon that trajectory just because it does not please another superpower or another power? No, because Pakistan is going to do what is in its own interest. Because if we are not part of a bloc, or we are not part of a security or a military alliance when we develop or promote our relationship with a particular country. We take into account geographical factors, economic factors, and then we decide what is in our interest. And it is our right as a sovereign country to pursue a balanced and independent approach in foreign policy. This should not bother us.
Right, and Ambassador Saab, it's of course understandable that it should not be bothering any country if that actually happens, but apparently it does. And when we look at the situation in this way, and it's not just limited to a particular country, it's going to have an impact perhaps on our relations with every country in the international community. How will Pakistan be able to sort of navigate through international politics if perhaps the relationship becomes increasingly sour?
No, I think we are navigating it, and we have navigated it, before also, quite successfully. And even now, I don't see, as a practitioner of foreign policy, that we are not doing it. I mean, our approach is generally right. There can be room for improvement, but generally it's right. And I think if you follow this approach, but the core point is develop yourself, develop your economy. Try to become self-reliant so that you have less dependence on others. We should not be going to these IFIs, every second day to seek bailouts. If as a nation, as a people, we decide that we have to stand on our own feet and move in that direction, that I think we will have greater respect internationally also, and I think less chances of being coerced or intimidation.
And that's very good point, Ambassador Saab. Let me ask you about a fourth country. Although we keep on talking about the three great powers and how to navigate between them, the fourth country that has become the epicenter of now conflict between at least two major powers, that is Ukraine. Today, a diplomat on a private channel was claiming that when India scuttled Article 370, it was Ukraine that stood by Pakistan and actually took a stance in support of Pakistan. Is that correct, sir?
I'm not quite sure, frankly. I'm not quite sure.
Right.
We have good
just wanted to
relationship with
clarify.
Ukraine. We have good relationship with Ukraine, but I'm not sure as to what stance they had. I don't recall really. But the point is that why should Pakistan be so much, be under pressure, or feel that it is under pressure by pursuing an independent policy, which is in our interest? I mean, it's we can't be neutral. If, for example, if we have a very close strategic partnership with China, we are not going to sort of sacrifice that relationship or the gains which we have made in the past 70 years just to please or displease some other power. At the same time, because we are trying to develop relations, pressures will come. Pakistan can withstand pressures. Pakistan has faced pressure in the past also. So I don't think that as a country which is 20 million people, and this and that we can't stand pressure. I think so. But the core point is, the moot point is that we should decide as a nation to sort of stand on our own feet and move in the direction of self-reliance.
Right.
Yeah, Ambassador Saab, you being a diplomat, I just wanted to know, in recent past, of course, we saw that diplomats from a certain country, they were going out and meeting with different opposition leaders, and then coming out, getting exposed of this cable. How do you see it all? And secondly, I just wanted to know, you being a diplomat would be certainly concerned about if Prime Minister Imran Khan survives this, no confidence motion, then of course you would be looking at how the things move on for Pakistan, knowing the fact that we were already cautioned about it.
No, I think we should be rational and pragmatic. First of all, it is nothing unusual or abnormal to meet the opposition people. No. We in the United States or in the United Kingdom, our diplomats do meet, the Treasury benches, the members of the Treasury, as well as the opposition. There's nothing wrong per se, abnormal. Now, as far as what will happen, I can't predict what will happen on Sunday. But the point is that if we maintain the direction of the foreign policy which is now, and which is quite balanced and pragmatic, then I don't think that we will face tremendous pressure or we can all make amends, and we can navigate. I think that should not be a big issue.
All right, Ambassador Saab, my last question to you with regards to what is happening in the country and what is being spoken about with regards to a foreign conspiracy or a threat or the undiplomatic language that has been used with regards to the internal affairs of the country, irrespective of any party. What do you think should have been the course of action with regards to the situation that is existing in our political scenario within our own country in face of such a threat or such a cable being sent out for the government? How should have the government and the opposition parties reacted? What needs to be the right course of action for a democratic state?
Well, I don't know. I think this question should be asked to the opposition and the Treasury benches. Yeah. I'm no one to really comment on that. But I think if our nation shows unity, then I think no adversary can harm you. Very simple.
Absolutely. Thank you very much, Masood Khalid Saab, for joining us and being a part of the debate and talking to us with regards to, of course, Prime Minister Imran Khan's address to the nation earlier today and the elements that he has pointed out with regards to a foreign involvement in the country in the aftermath of the National Security Committee as well. We are expecting a vote for the no confidence motion on the 3rd of April on Sunday. It remains to be seen what is going to happen, but you all heard the address of the Prime Minister, and that, of course, is a matter of concern for all of Pakistan. With regards to Pakistan's sovereignty and its prosperity, it is important to everyone. Whatever happens in the parliament on Sunday is still something that remains to be seen. But of course, at the end of the day, what we all hope for is best for the country. Thank you so much for watching the debate. We'll see you tomorrow at 7.